Welcome back to Ren Behind the Practice. I'm Sophie Campisi, a holistic business builder and startup expert. If you've listened to the podcast before, you know that the show exists to bring forward the conversations that are usually happening quietly behind the scenes of our businesses. The uncertainty that pivots, what's keeping us from finding consistent client flow and income. Today's conversation is a little different. This is a Diagnostic Day episode. In these follow-up conversations, I reconnect with previous guests to explore what's happened since we last spoke. Because after years of working with practitioners, coaches, and healers, I've seen something that can't be ignored any longer. Being deeply devoted to your work isn't enough to build a successful business. Your mission matters, your skill matters, your passion matters, your heart matters, but none of these replace learning how businesses are actually built. Most of us were never taught that. So we work incredibly hard. We invest in courses, coaches, content, marketing, often trying to solve problems that we don't fully understand yet. And that's what these Diagnostic Day episodes are about. Every guest has already shared their story in a previous conversation. Today, we're coming back to reflect on what they've tried, why it hasn't worked, and most importantly, what they're beginning to question. Because when we learn to see our businesses more clearly, we can stop wasting time, money, resources, and energy on the things that aren't working. And the reality is, we need better businesses. Today, I'm joined once again by Christine McFarlane-Olsen from episode 70. Christine, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be back.
After our last conversation, what has been on your mind the most?
Lead generation, back office systems. People talk about automation. What even is that? Yeah. So I've been doing lots of work behind the scenes, trying to get some information, which I have been, thankfully. And because I've been trying to understand this for quite a while, it's to some level starting to sink in.
What keeps bringing that back to your attention? So you said a few things. So you can start with the first one. You said lead generation, or you can just see what comes. But what keeps bringing that back to your attention?
I guess my struggles with lead generation, understanding funnels, how they work. You know, everywhere you look online, someone's selling a AI funnel system, and you still can't understand what it is or how it works. And there's so many different options, and everyone tells you that's the best and it's the easiest. And when it's free, when it's paid for, what are the differences? And then there's the train of thought where you should be getting better at it yourself. And until you actually understand how a funnel works, then you shouldn't be handing it off to anyone else, because it is so important to your business. Sure. Lots of personal growth has to happen.
Totally. But also, I think that there's also more at play that we'll probably get into a little bit more. But before we do that, I want to ask you, why does that feel important to you right now? Whether it's specifically funnels or lead gen, like what is it about that feels very important for you?
For me right now, that's where my focus is. It's what I want to learn about next. I've been working on leveling up my social media and staying relevant to my avatar. And I'm happy with where that is right now. But there's nothing supporting that to help grow my business. And so that's where I want to start bringing in systems.
Right now, what do you believe is the biggest thing standing between you and that growth, or you and where you want to be with your business?
A lot of it's knowledge, but a lot of it is also capacity to hold that. Belief that you can do that on top of all the new stuff you're currently doing, all the daily stuff and life.
Are there specific bits of knowledge that you feel like you're lacking that you think is the main issue?
Well, I actually did a training on some of this stuff today. So that has given me a little more confidence to push forward, but it's also about backing that up with some way of recording what you're doing. And then now that's CRMs. I didn't even know what a CRM was a few months ago. I'd heard the letters, but it didn't mean anything to me. So these things are sort of all rolling into one another, and they all work in tandem with each other. But I know there was a time, maybe a year ago even, when I would have been just totally overwhelmed with that. And now I think I'm a little more mature with my learning for my business and managing my emotions around that. So having a broken foot has obviously helped because I've had to step back and rest. So that's given me some more time to really start mulling these things over and working out some options that I'm going to try.
When it's come to some of the things, like you said, you were doing like some training or course and you were learning about CRMs and you've been kind of like trying to understand about funnels. Is there a certain reason why you think that the stuff that you've been trying to learn about is the thing that's going to solve the business problems? Like, is it because someone told you? Is it because you think that like that's, the missing piece? What has had you think, oh, this is the thing I need to learn about? I need to learn about funnels. I need to learn about CRM. I need to learn about, whatever you've been trying to learn more about. Why those things?
I think because the pennies dropped. Last year, I also did a training on funnels, and it went over my head. I couldn't understand anything, and maybe that was a nervous system thing. I've done a lot of work on that in the last year as well, and capacity to expand, because there was definitely a time when the things that I do on a daily basis, even now, were things that I didn't believe I would be capable of.
When it comes to the stuff that you have tried, and I know that you're definitely like articulating that you felt like you couldn't really grasp it or couldn't really get it, didn't really make sense. I have a couple way that my thoughts are splitting around this, but do you feel like learning about those things? Let's just assume, because what something that I see over and over again is those of us who are doing this work, we tend to on, let me see how to articulate this, putting the, for lack of a better term, blame on ourselves. Like we think if something's not clicking, it must just be because we haven't worked hard enough on ourselves, right? Like, even hearing you say, it's like, well, I should have more capacity because I couldn't understand it. I was learning it, but it was just kind of going over my head. But part of me wonders, what if it wasn't you? Like, what if it wasn't just because all of the things that you told yourself, oh, well, I should have gotten it. So there's probably something wrong with me because it seems like this is working for everyone else. So I probably need to work harder on myself. But I'm sitting here wondering, like, what if that wasn't the case? What if that wasn't the right solution? What if that wasn't the right thing for you to learn at this time, or wasn't the right thing to make your business work or make it make sense? Or if it just wasn't at the right time? What if there's something else that you needed to learn, which is why you can't understand funnels, because it just might not be the right timing even.
Yeah, because I totally understand where you're going too. That's something that also has helped me not get so emotional about stuff that I'm not getting at the time, because everything has the right time. Everything in its right time.
A metaphor that came up with someone on this podcast show, it was brilliant, Kendra. She was saying, she used this metaphor of her seeing this, and she doesn't do necessarily what I do, like, but from her lens and just looking at our industry, she was saying it's like a chef needing to prepare a meal, and everyone keeps telling him he just needs to work on himself. So he spends so much time sitting there just working on himself, trying to hype himself up. But at the end of the day, you can sit and work on yourself as much as you want. But if you don't go and get those ingredients that you need to make the meal and get the right ingredients to make the meal, will never be prepared. It's like that chef doesn't have to be the best person or the best version to prepare a decent meal, Like, yes, he has to know some skills, but there's multiple parts to it. And we overshoot working on ourselves, like over and over and over again, constantly thinking, I need to do more, I need to be better. But I've never actually seen someone in all of my years of doing this and all of the conversations that I have with people where I'm really like, yeah, they need to work on themselves more. That's actually the problem. It's not to say there's not a time and place for it. Certainly, of course. Like we're all devoted to that work. We're never going to just like stop doing that. But when it comes to business building, it is by far and large not even close to being one of the biggest problems for why people can't get their businesses to work. But interestingly, people keep thinking, oh, I just need to work on myself more. And going back to that metaphor, this is part of the problem, is because we're all so good at working on ourselves, all in this industry. So then, people have, who are also in this work, who are transformational coaches or whatever, I've seen this pattern happen. They couldn't really get their businesses to work, but they saw if they started working with other entrepreneurs, that was a good angle. But it's so much focus on working on ourselves. And there's this whole other piece that's missing of, are people effectively, using that chef metaphor, showing you the ingredients that you need and then showing you the process for how to cook that meal that you're doing? Because you need also both. So when we are using that, part of why I was questioning, well, what if funnels wasn't the thing? Not to say you might never use a funnel. I don't use them. I don't teach people how to use them, and you can build really great businesses without them. But it's not to say it's not something that could work. But if you're teaching someone how to use a funnel, but they don't have the ingredients, it's like teaching them how to cook the recipe or kind of do something later on. But if they don't have those ingredients, then it's like going to be very confusing, right? So like my preliminary sense from what you've shared, which hasn't been a ton, is it's very confusing for you because that's maybe steps 7, 8, 9, or 10. And no one has showed you like steps 1 to 6 that would have funnels make a lot of sense for you. Does that make sense?
Yes. And no. And that I understand the intro and the nurture and the conversion type idea of the flow. But knowing how to put that into place, knowing how the messaging works to make that happen. So while I understood the concept, the how was something that took some time. And I think it was both, in that I never thought I would be a life coach. This wasn't even an option for me 5 years ago. So on some level, I think that it was a tandem type thing where take a few steps this way, add a few steps on that side as well. Just the timing, like you say, timing.
Yeah, I want to tease this apart a little more. So when you've invested time, money, energy, attention into learning something new, you can use something specific, whether it's funnels or CRM or whatever, even if it's what you did today, the thing that you worked on today. What's happened? What's happened each time after you've invested that?
Growth, movement, increased confidence.
What didn't happen that you thought would come from those things?
Money, conversion. But again, I think it's a growth thing. By step, next thing. I don't know if that's the right way to look at it or anything, but I think that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not like a matter of right or wrong. I think that, what I hear you saying, it is really relevant to a lot of people. And you've already said a couple really things that are things that are just part of the reality of our industry. Someone gave me this phrase that I've coined, kind of like stolen from this podcast, which is like, this was Michelle, like very early on. Most of us enter entrepreneurship through the back door. It's not a conscious choice to become an entrepreneur. We are gifted healers, supporters, nurturers. Like we are gifted way showers. Like we have all of the skills. We're energetic, we're empathetic, we have high integrity, a commitment and a devotion to the path of transformation and growth and doing the hard thing and walking the walk and not turning a blind eye, like all the things that make us incredible at the work that we do. But we enter entrepreneurship through the back door. Very few, if any of us, were consciously like, I want to start entrepreneurship. Like I want to start the journey of building a business and learning how to build a startup. And so what you said, no, it does make sense and it does track, because what I heard you saying was you're gaining confidence, as you're learning more, you're not feeling so lost, you're not feeling so blind, you're not feeling so in a space of unknown. You're learning distinctions. Wow, I had no idea what a funnel was. I had no idea what a CRM was. And I might not know how to use it yet, but at least now I have the lay of the land a little more. It's like you're kind of like starting to chart the territory. So no, that's totally valid. And you're saying, but clients aren't coming, right? Like I'm not getting consistent clients, not getting consistent conversions, not able to, sustain it financially. So both absolutely can be valid at the same time. And it is. And that's part of what we're all dealing with and coming up against. And one of the things that I hit on my own journey, and I'm also trying to reflect to people more, is, I hit a point where the hardness of entrepreneurship, of course it's going to be hard, of course it's going to be new, but there was a certain point where I felt like, okay, but I feel like this has kind of gone beyond. I feel like at some point, some of this stuff needs to start clicking, at least in small ways, because I've been doing this for so many years. So like it's turning this point to where I just feel like I'm learning, I'm getting the lay of the land to also, I can't also keep bypassing the fact that it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable energetically, financially. Like I can't pay my bills. I can't keep pouring into this thing and not feel like I'm getting something out. Like that's where that burnout started happening for me. And I think that's the point that a lot of people are hitting, and they're going to hit at some point. That is something that I want to and like to highlight, where both need to be happening. We will continue to learn. It will never stop. Entrepreneurship is like children. There is no, like, it just stops one day and it all works. It's like, it's a constant evolution, you know? But just like children, when they're newborns, like you're going to get something from them, but not a lot, right? They can't really address your concerns back. But at a certain point, that does need to start being mutual. So it's like thinking of that, even that timeline. It's like maybe it's a year or a couple years where it's like you are pouring so much into it because you're just at the beginning. But at a certain point, it needs to also be able to address your concerns, even if it's starting to happen in small ways. And that's the point where we need to be really looking at to make sure we're not pouring so much into and keeping learning and trying different things, where we're not then also seeing some conversion, right? Some of it starting to click and start working, because that's where people will end up 8 years, 10 years, 12 years in and be like, I'm still not making money. And like, that's what certainly we need to be solving, that part.
Yeah.
What has felt like it's been taking the most energy, resources, whether it's mental or physical, money, what has felt like it's been taking up the most, consuming the most for you?
I think physical energy wise, my community groups are very high energy, high impact. And I don't mean like, wow, we're here today, we're going to change our lives. Vibrational energy and supportive energy is very high, and physically I am shattered when I get home from those days. My heart is so full, but physically some days my body hurts and I crawl straight into bed when I get home. And mentally, because I've been quite withdrawn for a lot of my life, the actual outreach, the messaging people to begin with was super triggering. And if I drop off and don't keep doing even small amounts each day, I feel the anxiety building in my body, the tension just from having to reach out. Yeah, I sort of understand a lot of that stuff because I've got a lot of history and I've worked very hard to get to where I am, even 5 years ago, you probably wouldn't be able to find a photo of me online. I was one of those that is stuck on, you have to be invited. But I still find that. I still find that. But it gets easier. It does. You've just got to keep going if that's what you really want to do.
Are your community groups free groups?
Yes.
Are they intended to be connection pieces, air quotes, lead gen resources?
No, that's my community. The groups are groups where I found support when I was in the thick of it. They are people who I used to be. I used to have their lives. And so that's just full passion for me.
Is there any tie to that, to your business model? Not to say like when it comes to building air quotes the right way, like building a startup, because we're all in startup world. One of the key things that most people aren't being taught is how to build in connection. So you mentioned avatar. So some people will give us these exercises, these hypothetical exercises, but a lot of what they are giving us has us building in isolation, just like coming up with our own good ideas and kind of doing the work on our own and then trying to like sell something later on. So it sets us up kind of for failure. And people aren't showing us how to really build in connection, how to build all of the foundations of our business, being deeply connected to the people that we want to serve, doing it in a way that allows us to each step of the way validate, as in make sure this is the right thing that works before moving on. It's like you don't go to step 10 without knowing that 1 to 9 work. But so often what we've been taught in building is you just zoom through it on your own, get to step 10, and now go try to sell it. Okay. But we've built in isolation. So it's basically that's why people will say things like, I feel like it's going into the void. I just feel like it's going to nothing. I feel like it's going to empty ears. I feel like things are falling on deaf ears. I feel like spending so much time creating content or creating this thing, and then I put it out and no one comes, or people ghost me, or all of that, right? Like that's essentially part of what's going on. Instead, if we build this other way, if we build in deep connection with our people and we go step 1, we make sure it works, and then we go to step 2, we make sure it works. By the time we get to 10, our chances of success are almost guaranteed because we've been in connection all the way through. And so one of the questions that I have hearing you say that about your community groups is, do those types of events have any relationship to your business model in terms of the people that you want to be serving, whether it's informally, just like, yeah, these are my people, or formally in terms of like, yeah, I also know how to connect them?
Not always. I have some of my community groups, I have homeless people, people who have been through like strokes, families currently going through cancer treatments and diagnosis and lots of adversities. So while I don't see them all connect at the time, some of them have gone on to do some pretty incredible things, change their life, couples starting their own businesses. So while they may not currently be a direct connect, some have become possible connections. And yeah, and most of them were all very happy. I have some really lovely transformation stories and just from them lovelies. But that is, for me, that's something that I really want to do. I want to go back to the people who didn't have the opportunity to have a life coach, didn't even know what a life coach was, and looked at me like, who did I think I was walking into the room with all this woo-woo?
If you had to say who are your ideal clients in your coaching practice, how would you answer that question?
My ideal clients are ex-corporates, ex-management, who have been through possibly childhood trauma. Just from the people that I have worked with, they have just been able to move through most of their life. And then when they get into middle age and get hit by some hard adversities that can trigger them back to their earlier issues that they've been able to get through. And those can be some pretty powerful emotions.
Was that your story?
No, I definitely carried my trauma through most of my life.
Were you like that ex corporate, ex management person?
Yes, I was. And then I went and had my children, and then some of them were diagnosed with genetic illnesses. So I was unable to go back to work. And so I became a mum. Our lives changed financially. And then their father got sick and multiple times before his diagnosis. And so there was a lot of years, and how I felt about myself was very different from when I was working, and felt capable and felt strong and felt I had a direction, to completely the opposite.
I have some thoughts if you're interested in hearing my thoughts
Definitely.
about where I think your like maybe main misdiagnosis is, or just like where your time and energy would be most valuable. And it might not be what you want to hear. And so you might have to sit with it, and it might be counterintuitive, it might not. But what I see is that there is a big mismatch between your work and the work that you do and connecting it with a population of people that is really easy to find or that you're already connected with. So essentially, when you might hear people say you need a niche, okay, but people aren't really explaining why or how to do it or the importance. And it seems to me like this is part of the mismatch. When we talk about funnels, CRM, that's like later on in the journey. But if you aren't super clear on who your people are, not just simply, and I'm going to give you a little more context for that, none of that later stuff will work, right? Like funnels will work if you have steps 1, 2, and 3 done. But if you don't have 1, 2, and 3 nailed, then like a funnel isn't really going to help you, because that's just like a later on piece. So part of why often what happens is that's part of why I asked, was this your story? Is this your people? And I asked who's in your community groups. Because when we're thinking about, we want to be able to like think about this phrase. I solve a deep unmet need for a certain group of people that's easy to find and ready to pay. Okay. So when we're thinking about who our ideal client is, those two pieces that people aren't talking about nearly enough, they're easy to find. Really, this one, let's just even start with that. They're easy to find. That is so important. That is maybe the most important thing to building a successful, sustainable business long term. Now, later on, you'll get to the harder to find populations. That's totally fine. But early on, you need to easily be able to find this type of person. So when it comes to like when you're saying I'm wrecked after my community groups, definitely some breakdowns there for you, but also like sounds like you're connecting with people in abundance, and it's like a lot, and there's a lot going on. Not saying that's necessarily the place to be thinking about in terms of your business, but that's to give you some context for the most important piece to early on startup building is, can you find a specific group of people in abundance and often? Like that is the most important piece. So when you're thinking of even something like ex-corporate, they're in middle life and they're having adversaries, could you tomorrow go and find that type of person in abundance? If yes, that's a good thing. But if not, that just means, it doesn't mean that something's wrong. It just means it's a really risky population to build your business around. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
And this is what people, again, they're not talking about it. They're saying you need a niche. Here, do this ideal client avatar exercise and whatever. But because it's an isolated, hypothetical thing, they're not teaching you the right things to look for. What makes a great air quotes niche? I don't teach niche. I teach people something called the zone of impact. It has specific things involved. One of the things that is vital is that you can easily find this group of people to just have conversations with, right? Just conversations. Because later on, sales and conversions will need to happen. But if on square one, you can't find them in abundance to just talk to and be in connection with them, that is going to be the number one reason why things won't work later on. Again, people aren't talking about this. They aren't teaching this when they're talking about niche, target market, like find your audience. This is one of the most important pieces early on. So that's where I think there's a little bit of a mismatch. Again, I've only had what you've told me today and what we talked about in our last interview, but with who you're already connecting with in abundance and who you're trying to find for your business, there might be a little bit of a mismatch. To give more context to why I call it a mismatch, I will, I talk to people all the time who will say, well, these are my ideal people. It's, a 28-year-old woman, and she came from this type of family, and she wears these types of clothes, and that's an avatar that's come from a hypothetical thing. So I'll ask that person, for instance, well, where is she? It's like, I don't know. It's like, is she a real person? Probably. Well, where could you find her tomorrow? I'm not really sure. Okay. Again, not like right or wrong, but if you see, that's why that hypothetical exercise doesn't help us very much, because we need to connect to real people. We need to be able to talk to them in real time, just to have a conversation with them, listen to them. This is what we, do early on when I teach people how to build businesses. So there's a mismatch. So that same person that's like, this is my ideal client. She's 28. She shops at this store. She comes from this type of background, and this was her family and whatever. And I'm like, okay, tomorrow, could you go strike up a conversation with her? It's like, well, I don't really know. It's like an hypothetical exercise. I'm like, that's a breakdown. Who do you talk to? Well, my husband runs this business and I help him run this business, and I'm surrounded by young actors all the time. It's like, huh, you see how many of those people a day? 100. Wow. Okay. That's something that's interesting. Or, I'm in carpool line and I'm surrounded by moms all day long who are like interested in, being more conscious parents. Like, okay, those are real things. Those are tangible things. Those are the real people that you're already connecting with every single day. Those people are easy for you to find. It's easy for you to get information and data from. Again, it's not to say this is your end result ICP for your business long term, but when I'm talking about being early on in the business building stages, these are the types of things that are actually the most important that most people aren't talking about. Can you talk to these people in real life, in abundance, early on to have conversations with? Because if it is hard to find them to just strike up conversations with, again, it's incredibly risky to build a business around that. Does that make sense?
Sure does.
Another example, I talk to people a lot. They're like, it's CEOs who are doing, this, and they're yearning for something. And it's like, do you know any CEOs? Well, no. Have you ever worked in the corporate setting? No. That's just you're not setting yourself up for success. It's a really difficult place and really risky to build a business around if you don't even know any, and you don't even know where to find them, and you've never been one, and you don't have a lot of connections in that space. So you have those two things going on. Either it's like too hypothetical and it's not concrete enough, as in like, where could you find that person tomorrow to talk to them? Or it's, yeah, you could find CEOs. Sure, you could get on LinkedIn and you could do a term search for CEOs. But like, if those aren't your people, if it's not really warm, if you don't know the ins and outs of them, and it's not easy for you to just warmly, like cold reach out, but warm to 10 of those tomorrow, like it's just a really risky place to build a business around, because it's just like, it's not that it's right or wrong. It's just like, it's not a good place. It's a mismatch in terms of what is a solid foundation to start building. Entrepreneurship, incredibly risky. Everything that I do with people is to decrease the amount of risk that's unnecessary. This is one of those examples, and this is what most people are missing when they try to teach you how to find your ideal client. That's maybe the biggest thing that is popping up to me right now, because the thing that's taking the most from you is these community groups. You're connecting with people all of the time, but it's not necessarily matched to who you think your clients are. And again, not to say that any of those groups will be your clients, but do you kind of get what I'm saying around like what real people are you touching in real life already? Who are you surrounded by? Who could you just have conversations with to get data from that you then could build your business on? That's really, really important. Is that resonating?
Oh, totally. Yes, because I've been looking at that a little this year, and I've been researching about possibly getting some government contracts to support those groups, because, and I think it really is because those resources are not available to such a great amount of our population who would benefit so hugely. And in my big vision, I see this being like a charity of my empire.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, again, like what you're seeing, it's totally valid. Listen to my Diagnostic Day episode with Haley Nelson. It's not out yet, but I'll put it out soon because her target market's homelessness, and she spent about 6 years trying to do what you're talking about. And it was a really hard business model for her. So listen to that too. But these are
You,
the types of, go ahead.
oh, that would be beautiful. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. Listen to her episode. And also I'm happy to connect y'all as well. If you wanted to chat, let me know and I can reach out to her and see if that sounds good to her. But again, this is where I'm talking vision, purpose, mission, passion meets realistic business model building. We need it all to click because if your ideal client is homeless people, you will get there. You might not get there first. That might not be the first place that you get business success and business momentum, but you will get there. So it's a matter of, again, working our visions backwards to matching it to real market demand right now in real time, because we have to be able to make money from our businesses. We have to get our business models to work. So because very few people are actually teaching this stuff, it feels like, oh, something went wrong if something isn't working. But when you're actually approaching business building and going through the startup phase, the way that I teach people, nothing's ever wrong. It's all a matter of just finding the right fit, working things backwards. Oh, this isn't working. Just go back a step. That just means you need to tease things out one step before. It's never like, oh, what I'm trying to solve and what way too many of us are doing is similar to my conversation with Haley. She's like, I worked on this for 6 years and then it just flatlined. Right? Like that's what I'm trying to help people solve. Can we not go into that pattern of focusing on something that has really predictable markers from the startup business building perspective really early on? That's like, hey, that's not a great business model to go after. Can we find that out sooner so that we don't invest 6 years, 8 years, 12 years into something to just ultimately hit the brick wall enough to where we finally give up? Because there are really predictable data points to look for that we have. They're distinctions. These are really grounded. It's the stuff that is like easier to see, but very few people actually understand the technicalities of what makes a really solid, concise, simple, sustainable business model that has a high chance of success. We're decreasing the amount of risk. Again, entrepreneurship is inherently risky. We can't guarantee anything. But every single step of the way, if we validate it, we can decrease that chance to where at a certain point, again, if you validate, when I mean validate, I mean, do you get the data back that shows that this is a sweet spot? Like, wow, these are the people that I think I would like to help. Okay, the first way to validate that is just, can you find them? Can you find them in abundance to just talk to them? Okay, cool. We can validate that this is a great population. That decreases a significant amount of risk in like 1 week. When I do my business builder lab with people, we focus on this for about 4 weeks and we lace in other things. But in a matter of weeks, you can decrease a significant amount of risk for your whole business in the future just by this one simple thing, right? Like, can we find these people in abundance? Okay, that could take you 2 weeks to answer yes or no. If it's no, nothing's wrong. It's not like you did anything wrong. It's just you want to know no in the first 2 weeks of, wow, I thought this would be a great population for me. I can't find them anywhere. I don't actually know how to find them. It's hard to find them. Or, maybe I can find them, but it's really difficult to find them. Or I started talking to them and like, I don't really like the conversations. Like, you want to know this really early on. You want to know this in weeks 1 to 2 because nothing's wrong. It's really great data for us. It's just like, okay, that's either I can't find them, huge red flag, because that's going to cause you to fail long term. You can work on it for 6 years and it's still going to fail, even if you make the perfect offer, because if you can't find the people, right? So it's a matter of looking at it like this, like, can we decrease that amount of risk? So homelessness or burnt out moms, whatever it is, we want to start first and foremost, can I find them? Can I find them in abundance? Because if we can do that in weeks 1 to 4, again, that decreases a significant amount of risk and it increases your chance of success long-term for business. And again, I'm realizing that burnt out mom's not really my vibe right now. Great. That took you 3 days to find out and nothing's wrong. You just pop over to the next hypothesis for who it might be. Wow, I never thought that these types of people would interest me, but I'm loving this. I can find them. I'm connecting with them every day. Great data point. Do you see how it's like a different way of looking about building that has you
Yes.
build in deep connection from the very first day, because the very first day it's, can I reach these real humans and have real conversations in real time? It's the reason we're all doing this work anyway.
Absolutely.
Any thoughts, questions?
No, I love that. I would love to hear and how it didn't, depending on how deep the conversation goes. I'm
Oh yeah,
sure
you'll
I'll
hear a lot. You'll hear a lot about what didn't work for her in a good way. Like she spent a long time on it for 6 years. And she's in a pocket that is working. So you'll hear a little bit about that too. But what she worked on for a long time, it ended up not working. When I heard her telling that, took me about 30 seconds to see exactly why it didn't work. You know, what if she could have had that information 6 years before? It's not to say she wouldn't have worked with homeless people. It's just she wouldn't have spent 6 years working on a specific business model that was really risky and really hard and probably wouldn't have worked long term as her first thing to focus on. We could have worked it backwards and had her nail that target market in a different way, in a different angle, just by looking at some of these things early on, practical, more strategic things. But we have to, again, we have to be able to passion, mission, heart alone isn't enough to also make the business work. We have to be able to match the two, and it is possible. No one is going to abandon their passion, their mission, their soul's work. That is never going to happen. But we have to be smart about business building, because passion, heart, soul alone will not create a great business model. Often it does the opposite because we're seeing too far out ahead. We tend to start with a very difficult business model that our chances of success on it are so small, and we will pour and pour into something that, for someone like me, it's really easy to see right off the bat, okay, yeah, that needs to be tweaked. That's very difficult. That piece, it's super risky to do that. Let's adjust it so you can actually set yourself up for success. Nail it with this one first. You'll get there. You will get there, but you need to start over here. You know, those types of things.
absolutely.
Anything else that you want to say and add before we wrap up today?
I am so grateful to have been here with you today. Some very interesting perspectives for me to think about, and ideas, different ideas I like. And I'm definitely going to keep having these thoughts as I move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you again for coming here, for continuing the conversation. And, you know, one of the things that has me love these so much, and that I hope that it can continue to show other people, and I just said it, but it's worth repeating again, that building a meaningful business, building a mission driven business, soul led business, it's not just about being more motivated, working harder, caring more deeply about your mission. Those things alone actually aren't enough. And basically, everyone I talk to already has those things and has it in abundance, has more than enough of that side of it, but they need to shore up on the actual, you know, business technical pieces when it comes to startup building. So thanks for showing up, for continuing this on a diagnostic day conversation, and yeah, for slowing down and seeing that sometimes the breakthrough isn't something that's in front of us. Sometimes it's actually slowing down and stopping and seeing, what have we maybe missed early on that could make everything else so much easier. And one last thing, and like solving the wrong problem. You know, maybe this, again, it's not to say a funnel won't help you. It's not to say a CRM, but I teach people how to build businesses. I never teach them about CRMs because it's not something that matters early on. What matters early on is some of the stuff that we talked about today. Can you find real people in real time, connect deeply with those people? Those are the foundations that matter more than anything else when it comes to sustainable business building. It's actually rarely the stuff that people think it is. Again, it's not to say a CRM won't be there, but certainly it's not necessary at the beginning. And it's probably very confusing to try to learn about a CRM if you're not to that step yet, because like it's just, you know, it's learning, you know, step 13 of the recipe when you haven't even gone through the other steps. So it's kind of confusing to jump in at steps 13, but people aren't teaching that, and they aren't, like, it's just very confusing. So I just want to like say that. And you're not alone. And it doesn't surprise me that a lot of that stuff is confusing. I hear you, it's building your confidence. You're getting a lay of the land. You can kind of know what's coming, but certainly a lot of that stuff is really like, it doesn't help early on. And then it can kind of add to us feeling more, confused. So thank you. Thank you again, Christine. Thank you everyone who's listening. If any of this resonated, if it feels like you, if you see yourself in it, reach out. I'd love to talk to you. And Christine, thank you.